With the second season of Fruits Basket approaching its conclusion as we then wait for when season 3 will eventually arrive, I figured in the meantime, because I will be working on a Yuki character analysis video in a similar fashion as I did for the Toru with season 1, I figured why not give a bit of something fun for the audience of Fruits Basket who enjoys my content and do a little top 5-ish video of my favorite characters currently in the Fruits Basket anime series. I don't really think I have to preface this overly much with this fandom, unlike many which are pretty damn toxic I have to say, but this is just my opinion as of right now. Characters being ranked above another doesn't discriminate against the others, it's just like what I've enjoyed the most so far, and I think it's very important to know that I literally enjoy every single character in this series. Even the ones that infuriate me, and believe me, there's some that infuriate me. This is a series that knows how to write character development, knows how to write character progression, and just the relationships and how they intertwine with the others and how they kind of conflict and just basically cause this divide between the others is completely amazing. And I thought it'd be fun to really sit down and think about what are my top 5-ish characters as of right now, and then maybe when season 3 wraps up, I'll do an update video to this to see if anything changes. And even if it doesn't, I might still make the same video and just kind of talk about where they went over the future. But overall, this should be a fun video, and I definitely welcome discussion for anyone to leave me their top 5 or top 10, whatever you want to do, and just have a discussion about any of the characters I discuss in this video, or just bring up some maybe I don't. To begin, I think we're going to go with, in my opinion, one of the most wholesome, but don't get me wrong, still has his own flaws in his own right, Cosmo. Cosmo is a character who really stood out to me almost immediately since day one. He's a very selfish character in a certain sense, but he also is the entire reason a character like Hsieh is alive and well in current day and age for this series. Families and parents in Fruits Basket are very, very bad. In all honesty, they're some of the worst I've seen. The way they portray abuse and just neglect is completely spot on, and it's why it's very hard to stomach certain episodes. But Cosmo's past and how he feels very guilty about what he did to his grandfather because his grandfather was caged in because he had the cat spirit, and how because he didn't do anything there, he feels almost like he needs to redeem himself. He needs to do something to make this horror show from the past go away, and when you see a boy who no one wants to love and cherish, that's his way to make amends. And it starts out in a way that you might be able to look at it as something artificial and maybe a little more contrived, but it's anything but that. I really love how this author is able to take things that you can look at surface level and claim to be shallow, or they have ulterior motives, or all the other things that you could throw at it. But then you see how he is with Hsieh, and it's nothing other than a real father and son love. As everyone goes against him, he is there front and center to defend him. He wants nothing in return at present day. Maybe when he started out he wanted to redeem himself, but he redeemed himself quite soon in my opinion. And it's great to have something that feels so wholesome in a world that feels so dark and full of terror. Good authors will know that even when you're portraying a story about abuse and neglect and all the things that come with abusive family stories, you still need to have something that keeps you grounded, and for Hsieh, the entire reason he's made it to the beginning of this anime with episode 1 of season 1 is because he had a real father figure who taught him the way of martial arts. He taught him how to, have some sort of self-worth and to carry on even if the world is against you. And that's why it's so great to see him really support Toru as well as Hsieh, because he sees that's the girl that makes him happy, and he's finally seeing his son go into great territory. And it's great to see something in a world full of shitty parents really rise to the occasion and be a real parent even though he never had to. And that's why I love his character, and even though we haven't seen a lot of him, he's always stuck out to me, and I really think with the 3rd season we're going to see a hell of a lot more with him, and I'm really excited to see where they take his character, with he has a lot more to say or only a little bit more, because he's an amazing addition to this story. Next up is Rin, who is actually my latest addition and I know the least about in this list. But when I saw her arc just really start to take shape in this 2nd season, I was blown away, because she's been a character who we've only really seen up until season 2 a little bit, and she kind of seemed like a bitch, if I'm being honest. She seemed like she kind of was up her own ass. That's kind of how she was portrayed, and then when you see how she was so scared to go home, how she would decide if she enters her home by the tone and the actions of her parents, and how basically she had nothing, and really the love that she had was something that she cherished but realized that she needs to push away in order to find a way to break a curse for those that she cherishes. And I love how they're able to portray something and switch my opinion on a character so fast with a single episode, and in doing so progresses the idea of breaking the curse with Toru in fascinating new territory. Because had you asked me that, do you think a character like Rin could become besties or sort of friends with Toru and maybe they would work together to break the curse? I'd say, well, probably, because you're clearly spoiling me. But if I would have thought about this myself, no, that would have not happened in the slightest. So it's really great to see these two characters start to build a friendship while also seeing a character who had the most disturbing backstory for me as of right now. It felt so real and visceral and raw, as if you wanted to turn away, but really you wanted to be like Toru and give this girl a hug because clearly she needs it. And when Toru's basically the motherly figure, she's the mother goose of this show, it really does put into perspective how much she's needed for this show, even though she has her own flaws that she needs to overcome. And Rin's addition is the most fascinating to me, and I think she could easily climb up even higher for me depending on where they take her character going forward. But in terms of just backstory alone, she has my favorite actually as of right now, and I'm really excited to see more of her. Next up is an interesting one, and that's Shigure. Shigure is a character who, ever since day one, maybe not day one, but in the earlier stages, I've been very cautious of, because he seems like the type of character who's always scheming, he's always manipulating, and even though he seemingly has good intentions in his heart, at the same time, it's not even just the anime's beautiful directing in terms of making him a little more menacing, it's honestly the idea that it feels like you don't know what he's thinking. And the fact that we can almost be done 2 seasons, 4 cores of an anime, and I still don't know his motives, is amazing. I thought this would be something that would be touched upon and wrapped up by the end of the first season, because seemingly that was the structure the show was going to go for, and I still don't know what he's thinking. And he could easily be someone who could stab characters like Toru or Kyo or Yuki in the back, or be the one who saves it all. It's hard to say what he feels, because on one hand it feels like he cherishes connections like with Akito and the others, and then at other points it feels like he would burn them without a second thought. And to have a show that can make a character who's been put in an almost fatherly role in the Soma house here, where you have Kyo and Yuki and Toru, and yeah, he may be a little flirtatious demon, at the end of the day he still felt like a big brother fatherly figure most of the time. And then you get moments that make you say, is he actually an antagonist? And I love that about the show, that it's not afraid to make you second guess characters, even characters you think are amazing. And that's why I really love his addition. Now for number 2, it is a tie, because I feel like without these two, it wouldn't be nearly as good, and that's Kyo and Yuki. I considered putting one above the other, but honestly, I needed to tie them, because they're almost 2 sides of the same coin. Both of which these characters blame the other for their misfortunes at times, but really both want to be friends but feel like they don't deserve it. And it's really interesting to have the idea of the cat and the rat spirit have this distrust and hate, but really you could see them being some of the best of friends if they could just break this curse, get rid of this Akito grasp, and just embrace each other as people, rather than having Kyo have to throw it in his face that you're the reason, you're the favorite, I have nothing, knowing in his heart deep down that he's also had it pretty damn bad, but he needs someone to blame. And Yuki, someone who feels like he has no self-worth, just feels like he needs to just navigate life and put on a fake persona, until Toru kind of intertwines and kind of intercepts both of them and shows him and starts to make sure they understand they have self-worth. Now season 2, Yuki has definitely had the biggest character development as of right now, but it's not to say that Kyo hasn't as well, because both of these characters are progressing towards amazing territory. I love the idea of the student council being Yuki's way of actually having friends and making his own path in life and finding his own self-worth and admitting his true feelings towards Toru, which is how he views her as a mother this entire time. For Kyo, he clearly loves Toru but is scared of going back to that cage, because once he graduates, it's gonna be basically like Cosmo's grandfather. He'll be locked away for life. And he wants to cherish the time he has with Toru, but understanding that he's not going to be able to be there for her like he wants to be able to. And these two, and how you think it's going to be a love triangle at the beginning of the anime, to then, if you watch the foreshadowing, as I actually accurately predicted Yuki's, it's not like stuff like this comes from left field because the author's like, oh, I just want them to be together, so I'm going to randomly pull this out of my ass. No, it was foreshadowed from basically day one. And even the moments where Yuki tries to flirt with Toru get explained in this season, how he thought it was wrong for him to look at her like a mother and thought he had to be a man and date her. And I love how they're able to touch upon these real things and how they turn such interesting topics into a supernatural tale that honestly feels more realistic than most realistic slice of life drama anime out there. And without these two constantly butting heads or helping one another or hating one another, it wouldn't be the same. And you need these two to be here. And it's honestly remarkable what they've been able to accomplish with this. And I'm really excited for season 3 to see where Kyo's going to go and ultimately where Yuki will wrap up, because they've been amazing so far and I'm so excited for more. And lastly is one other tie. People may get annoyed with ties, but I think similar to Kyo and Yuki, you can't have Toru without Akito. This series would not work in the slightest if one of these characters were removed. People will obviously be like, oh, Toru, of course, the lovable mother goose, you love her. She obviously has her own demons, her family, her mother and father. We still don't know everything about that and how she ended up dead and just what happened with the father and what caused her to basically lock her own feelings away. But why Akito? This character deserves to burn on the stake. This is a horrible character, and while that technically is true, this is a series about forgiveness and curses, and I honestly feel like Akito is probably the most cursed out of every character, and while having something that you can say is the reason you acted shitty is never an option for me, I hate it when abusers are able to use, oh, this is why I acted this way and people forgive this. I don't feel like that's what this show is, but rather, there's ways to push forward, and especially if you have an almost external factor, whether that's parents or a supernatural curse kind of making you shitty, there probably is ways for Akito to overcome this, and I feel like with Toru being the type of character she is, I feel like she has a way of mending Akito's heart. Without Akito constantly being a character who makes you infuriated and want to curl up in a corner and die, this show would be conflict-free. It would just be a bunch of characters for no reason feeling bad about themselves, because all of their abuse and trauma is heightened because of this character. And then you have the opposite, the yin and yang version, where you have Toru, who is the mending of their hearts, as you constantly have the shadowy flames of death trying to break their hearts down and keep them locked up. These two need one another. It almost feels like the Joker to the Batman. You need the other in order to survive. And once Akito most likely mends their heart, I feel like that's when the story can officially conclude and maybe the curse can finally be broken. These two are amazing and are equally important as Kyo as well as Yuki are together. And that's why I love this show, is that it's not afraid to make you love the weird characters. Shigure is a character that's mischievous and you don't know if you can trust them, but at the same time you have Akito who infuriates you and makes you want to curl up and feel the abuse that characters like Yuki have had to deal with. And it's amazing that they're able to accomplish so much with all sides of the spectrum of good and bad feelings. And that's why Fruits Basket is a modern masterpiece. Obviously, it's a classic masterpiece, but in terms of anime, it's a modern one because we've never had a full adaptation until right now. And it's amazing to see what they've been able to accomplish. Every character is great, don't get me wrong, but these are my current favorites, and I can't wait to see where they're going to wrap up Season 2 and where Season 3 can take it going forward. But of course, let me know your favorite characters or thoughts on my list down below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support. And hey, remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.